So, Chantelle, thank you so much for coming here and speaking about both title split, Quiddity Property Education, but also let's talk about you and the service that you provided our company for the last 5, 6, 7 years now, right? Now, this person, Chantelle, is amazing. When I say amazing, and I know you're going to start blushing, I'm always into the partners and stuff like that, how good this person is. And it just goes, it takes a certain person to be very good at this job because it is complex. There's a lot of work to go into it, lots of paperwork to go into it. So, can you, just tell us a bit about your journey from where you were and to becoming a qualified lawyer and now working with us for the last 5 years. So what's the journey? Because your journey is not your traditional journey.
No, it's not traditional, but thoroughly enjoy it. Of course, it's been a climb, as I can call it. It really is a climb. Still growing, still learning every day.
Yes.
But from where I started was just doing traditional residential property, and then I got more involved in the commercial aspect, looking at leases, and then I worked for developers, so that broadened my knowledge. So I do a lot of acquisitions through to development, through to now to splitting as well. Yeah. Whether it's pre-existing properties that already have that foundation laid with a block with flats already there, or whether it's a property that's going to be renovated into that space to effectively title split in the future.
Yes.
But yeah, now mainly focusing on title splitting from the onset, getting whether it's on finance, short-term finance, and planning with the clients of how they intend to split to get that investment in the end.
And suffice it to say, from our perspective, we keep you busy, right?
You keep me very busy.
From even my personal stuff and you've met 2 mentees just now that came to talk about it.
I do a day and a night shift.
Actually, do you know what? This is no joke. I've even said to Chantelle, stop working. It's 11 p.m. We were emailing, and whilst I love the dedication, but sometimes you are a workaholic.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes that quality of people to work with that is it's enjoyable. We go out, we socialize, we have a great laugh, but also when things need to get done, you just need the right people to do it. And which is again, I take this opportunity to thank you again for the last 5, 6, 7 years from my perspective and also the mentees' perspective, that everybody thoroughly enjoys working with you. So let's get into the title split stuff, the stuff that you do so well. So in a few words, so what happens in the title splitting process from a legal perspective and the intricacies of that? So let me give you an example. Let's take the one that we've just finished in Westgate, for example, or one of those, right? So it's a block of 6 flats. I come to you and say, okay, right, we're buying this. Really, what happens next? Because then you get involved from the purchase side for us, and then you get all the way to refinance. So walk me through what is it that's happening in the background for you from your perspective?
Right. So obviously, like you said, so it's a block of flats. So and it's already been the groundwork's been done. Yeah. So it's effectively a house where it's been self-contained, and that is the most vital aspect, that the flats are self-contained.
Yes.
So it's a freehold that's been purchased on a multi-unit basis. Yeah. And my job is to come in, make sure that we can create the leases, to then create the leasehold titles, to which will then be financed.
Yes.
So it's important for us to check, access, the services are all split. What common parts, we'll start looking at lease plan creation. They've got to be compliant with the Land Registry.
Yes.
So there's all those kinds of aspects, and I think it's really important to speak to the client from the onset to ensure that what their intention is. Are they looking to refinance in the future, which is most of the time, or are they looking to sell them on? We need to look at whether there's existing tenants, if there's going to be renovation works, and then we talk about the realistic timeline, because especially when you come in, you purchase with short-term finance bridging, which is effectively a 12 or an 18-month typical term.
Yes.
We need to look at planning aspects. Does it already have the correct planning in place for the use of flats?
Yes.
If it doesn't, we need to look at what options are available. Can we evidence 10-year continuous use to get a certificate of lawfulness? Can we effectively make a planning application to change the consent for the flats, and what costs are involved, timescales. So it's quite important from the offset. So like you said, we've just finished this one for you in Westgate, which lovely property, great investment.
Yes.
But it's important to what is your intention, which a lot of clients do just want to finance,
and keep.
This is it. It's an investment, so that they've got their rental income, and they're obviously able to finance each individual flat to make the return and then carry on.
So there's a lot of things that you have to do. So yeah, and I think you've just laid it out so quickly that it's worth kind of going back. So you know, when you get the paperwork, you are speaking to people like me and say, okay, well, what is it that you're buying? How many flats? Where is the access? Do you have planning permission? Is it going to be vacant or is it going to be tenanted? So if it's going to be tenanted, then you ask a load of questions. So, well, what kind of, do we have all the information from the seller around ASTs, EPCs, EICRs? So there's a lot of work that you do for us that it's not wasted on me, because I understand and I realize just how much work there is. But it also, I explain to people just why is it so important to get the right lawyers in. So on that note, why is title split such a specialized skill from a lawyer perspective? And I'm going to caveat that with, I've been doing this now for 15 years with lawyers, and I've seen lots of people say to me, I can do this, it's a lease. Quite frankly, everybody can write the lease. But why? There's people that say I can write the lease and get stuck. And why is it that you are so good at it and the firm is so good at it? And why is it such a specialised skill?
So I'd say it's you need an expert in property law, really, in the planning aspect, in the, for example, things that you've not mentioned yet, fire risk assessments. If the build is pre-2000, asbestos surveys, and they all need to be in place. It may be that you're able to secure the property on short-term finance without having those things in place at the time of the initial
because a bridger will not really care so much about those.
Exactly that. But when it comes to ultimately splitting the title, it's not just about the lease creation itself. It's about company structures. So making sure, you can't grant a lease to yourself. So making sure you've got that second company in place, that they're group companies, also bringing on a very experienced accountant who knows how to structure that well, so that we can then look at release for tax purposes, so group relief. If you're purchasing with 6 or more flats, we would understand that you can use non-residential rates. I think it takes an experienced lawyer, specialist, to understand what release can be applied, because not everyone is aware of that information.
And I think that last one is so key. So somebody's just joined my course a few weeks ago, and I'd bought something already in Birkenhead somewhere, up north somewhere, and turns out he's bought a block of 6 or 7 and never got the relief that was supposed to be applied. So here's an example of the lawyers not knowing what the reliefs are. And that hugely, we've saved thousands of pounds on stamp duty, really, just knowing the skill that you have.
Like multiple dwellings is no longer available.
It's no longer available.
It was a great relief when it was.
It was a great relief, and
made the most of it.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah.
So the skill set here is that technical ability to understand not just one lease creation, but it's the whole thing, the group structure, the non-residential, the size of the buildings, the FRA, so the fire risk assessment issue. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Yes, which can delay the transaction, especially if you're on short-term finance. You need to iron out any issues early on to make sure you're able to exit that strategy,
so one of the things that can then come to cropper is when somebody takes a bridging for 6 months and then they're having to fix this thing to get a longer term mortgage, and they can't.
And they're stuck.
So what would you say then in this case, what should the potential buyer be doing beforehand, before they get into this hot water, and then you tell them, hang on a minute, you can't refinance it because you haven't got this and this. So what do you think genuinely people need to be doing?
Well, first thing, proactiveness. We always help them, guide them through, hold their hand, because again, we are experienced in this area. But we will make it clear, for example, if they do. So at the beginning, we'll explain it if there's things that are lacking, such as fire risk assessment. We will say, look, you need to get these done. You need to be aware the cost involved of any recommendations that may need to be carried out, because of course we have to disclose these sort of things to lenders.
Yes, of course.
Maybe EPCs, they need to be within regulation, and energy efficiency. There's maybe works that need to be done, which is then you also take into account if there's tenants existing in the building, put them on notice, stuff like this.
The proactiveness is what you talk about. So I'm hearing here, it's almost people coming into it, and maybe they've not schooled with us, they've not done the education, but they want to go direct into buying. One of the things that I would urge them to think about is get somebody like Chantelle to help you with pre-buying criteria. So not just an auction and a legal pack survey, but actually look at the amount of things you've just reeled out. That somebody doesn't know one thing that really can help scupper their plans.
Yeah, such as planning issues. I've had cases recently where we've had a block of 4 flats. One of the flats only has consent for elderly use.
Wow.
We can come around these issues. You
Yes.
know, you can try and apply for, if you can evidence the 10 years of
use.
using,
Yeah.
you can get the certificate, or you can apply for consent for change of use.
Yes.
But there is not always a guarantee that that's going to go through. So there
Yes.
is a risk involved. So
Yes,
we need to
yes,
make
yes.
sure it's clear
Yeah.
how the timescales of making such a planning application,
Yeah.
which can of course then affect any term of the bridge and any interest payments. So
Yeah.
it's just about being aware of the timescales involved,
Yeah.
the procedure of what needs to be done, and again being proactive.
So would you say that, just like a legal pack check, would you say somebody listening to this, watching this, to say, do you know what, actually, I need to ask my solicitor, look, I'm thinking about this block, here's the details, here's the link for the website, here's all the details that the solicitor, or the seller or the agents have got. Can I pay you to have a review of this? And then you can, you've ticked out about 15 things here that needs to happen and needs to be there for them to exit and take their money out.
Yeah,
would you say that will be your kind of advice to people?
Yeah, exactly that. If you can get ahead of it and do any due diligence, it's important, because it just ensures a smooth transaction and an easier exit strategy.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And my last question for you, Chantelle, is, so we send your firm, yourself, a lot of our mentees, and obviously we do a lot of business with you guys. Do you find that having done the course and having us educate them on the process, does that then take out a lot of this criteria they have to meet to make sure that they've bought the right building and they've not missed out on anything? Do you find that the mentees from Quiddity Property Education gets, to a point where what they've bought is actually the right thing so that they can move on?
Yeah, I believe so. I think, again, it is very complex and there's a lot involved. So there may be things that's like the group company structures that they can't get their head around to begin with for new property investors. But yeah, I think the course sets the guideline of what needs to be done to find the right property to start with, that a house or a freehold that is already self-contained.
Yes.
So you've got that basis.
Yes.
But yeah, very helpful. They come to us, they have that pre-existing basic knowledge of what they're looking for.
They've bought the right thing, hopefully.
They've bought the right thing.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, it's always good to have, if we can have the opportunity to have a pre-pack review, just to outline any issues. There could be restrictions on the title itself. It's not always with planning. Sometimes there's restrictions on the title that say, not to be used other than a single private dwelling house, which again would then breach covenants.
Yes.
But there's always ways around this. But it's just good to iron out the issues to begin with, to keep expectations,
clear. And I think
yeah.
I think we're close on that to say, look, what I think that is one of the best things, that if somebody's listening to this, watching this, to say, look, I am going to get into title split. If you're not going to come down the route of the education piece, definitely reach out to your solicitors, reach out to people like Chantelle to say, look, we are buying this block. I understand there's a lot of technicalities here. Can you help me make sure that this fits the criteria?
Is it. And I think another thing with timescales as well is, obviously from the pandemic, Land Registry have a huge backlog.
Yeah.
So,
we know that.
Yes. So obviously, take an example of you buy a property on a bridge and you are splitting the title simultaneously, with the intention to ultimately maybe to carry out refurb works in the meantime, and then be able to market the property on individual
leases.
Exactly
and
that. But what we can do, because obviously we'll register the purchase, we'll register the leases, but again they take up to 1 to 2 years. But you're on a short-term bridge, you can't wait 1 to 2 years. So there is a way that we can speak to the Land Registry. We can make an application to expedite the leases for registration on the basis that you're intending to finance each individual lease. So that's something that we do proactively all the time, just to ensure that there's no delays on our side, because the registration can cause delays as well.
And that's a massive win, knowing the technicalities, working with professionals who understand this strategy, even just shortening. I mean, we get our leases recorded in not 1-2 years. Record time, exactly. So, but listen, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak to us.
Great.
This is one of many in the future that we're going to be hosting. Just to, we get lots of questions from social media, from different people asking to talk to lawyers who are not your jobbing high street person who's doing buy-to-let. It's very different technicality, skills. So as we go on, I hope I can have you on the next time around to talk about more specific things, different projects maybe, that we can then you can help us understand how that works.
No, it's been lovely to talk to you and lovely to work with you. I'm looking forward to continuing to grow with you.
Well, it's been 5-6 years, so let's
we've
hope
been on a journey.
It's a lot longer to go.
Yeah. No,
but thank you so much.
No, thank you, Azid.